Welcome everybody to the Single and Stiletto Show. I'm Suzanne Oshima and I'm a matchmaker and dating coach at Dream Bachelor and Bachelorette. I'm also the founder of Single and Stilettos. Today we have on our show Wendy Newman. She's the author of, get this, 121 First Dates, How to Succeed at Online Dating, Fall in Love, and Live Happily Ever After. And she's living proof that you can do this. So before we jump into our topic of don't be the rules girl, Wendy, I would love for you to tell our audience what made you write this book and what made you go on 121 first dates.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. Thank you for having me on. And boy, I never meant to write a book on dating. I never meant to spend so much of my time focused on dating. I thought, like a lot of women do, that after a long-term marriage ended, I'd just go on one or two dates and boom, I'd have my man. It took a decade and 121 first dates. And the reason it took so long for me was I wasn't willing to just say yes to the cute one standing in front of me like I had done dozens of times before. And I wanted to really see that there could be real compatibility before I actually entered a relationship, really looking at all the different things that I'd need for the long haul. I didn't need to change him at all.
Well, and Wendy, I love that you gave women a reality check because I don't want women to think that you did these 121 dates in 1 year and, oh, you miraculously met your man. This took, like you said, 10 years. And so I think that's important for women to realize, like, when you feel like giving up, you got to keep going because he may be just right around the corner.
Yeah, and something really important for them to see in my track record is date number 1 through 7 happened in the first 7 years. And that's because two of those 7 were those cute men who were standing in front of me. And one I spent 1.5 years with, and the other one I spent 4 years with. But I knew from the very beginning with both of those men, there was no future. It was not going to work. But being single sounded so unappealing, I was willing to just write it, even though I knew it wasn't a real relationship in both cases. So at the end of 7 years, I could see how much daylight I was burning in my life. I'm now in my 40s, it's time to get serious. And that's when 8 through 121 happened, and that took 3 years.
Well, and that's important is that you just became a smarter dater, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, Wendy, I want you to tell the women why they shouldn't be a rules girl.
Well, I, like everybody else, started by following rules, because dating is all about strategy and getting it right and finding the right way to catch him and keep him and all that good stuff. And what I could see slowly and over time was all of the rules were backfiring. And now, as a coach, most of my time is spent talking women out of the rules they read in books from the last couple of decades, which we'll get to in a minute. But I could see that it actually took me further away from who I naturally am. And the truth is, the rules were designed, the ones put in books, they were designed to sell books. They weren't designed to have a good partnership. I mean, I'm sure that people had good intentions and they meant well, but they were their rules. They're not your rules. So let's talk about the rules back in 1990. The rules, 1990s. They had the 3, when are you going to be intimate for the first time? They had the 3-date rule. And then somewhere in the 2000s, we updated it with the 30-day rule. I guess someone thought that 3 dates was too tardy, too, can I say that word? And then, so we went to the 30-day rule. And then nowadays, Steve Harvey, he has his book, there's the 90-day rule. Well, what is it? Is it 3 days or is it 90 days or what is it? And the answer to the question is they're all wrong. They're all wrong. And I've seen women follow rules that literally cost them their potential partnership. The real answer to when is the right time is when you're both truly ready. And I have heard men talk over and over about how they have left perfectly good women who they were getting along with and hoping for a future with because they were both ready. But this woman kept holding out for some form of strategy. Now, he doesn't understand we're strategizing for the good of the relationship to happen, right? Because if we time it just right, it will turn out, and it was meant to be. he doesn't see it that way. All he sees is a woman who isn't being herself, who's actually being fake and strategic to get something from him. And he's also being put through the paces. One man said to me, there were two women that I really liked, that I was really looking at as a wife material. And I left them both for the same reason, because they were holding out for some form of strategy. And I am not going to marry somebody who's going to put me through the paces around sex. That's something I need.
Well, and that's a good point. I like that you bring up these real life examples, because I completely agree with you. Because I get asked that question all the time: is when's the right time to sleep with a man? And I always tell women there's no right answer, because it depends on you and your interactions with that man. And every woman, it's different. It's very, very different, and you need to take everything on one case scenario. So, what's another rule that women follow that they shouldn't be following?
The person who speaks first loses all of their power. Don't make a move. Don't let him know of the 25 million people on the dating site that you exist. Now, me personally, I never once asked a man out on a date, but I reached out a lot. I reached out, dropped the little proverbial handkerchief to see if he'd come running behind and pick it up and hand it to me, but I never pursued. And I almost always reached out. Of my 121 first dates, 108 of them were from online. And of the 100% of good dates that I went on, 80% I reached out to. 20% reached out to me.
I want to just emphasize this, because this topic actually comes up a lot with my audience. And I just want to point out is that, Wendy, like how you said you reached out, but they always asked you out on the date, right? So yeah. you didn't become the pursuer.
Never.
But what I want to point out is she was proactive. She didn't just sit back and go, oh, well, who's going to contact me? It's like you said, you dropped a quote-unquote handkerchief.
Yes.
And then he was like, oh, And then he started to get to know you, and then you just waited for him to ask you out, right?
Exactly. Let him know, be the big green light that if you asked me out, I would say yes. But never ask them out. Never.
Well, that's great. I think that's a really, really great point, because it's about taking control of your dating life to make things happen.
Yeah. And I didn't ask them out because that was my personal rule. I think that women should do what works for them, but I would assert that if you want a masculine man, then you should let one run the show, because you should let him lead. You want to see where he's leading you to. If you want a man that you're running the show and you're calling the shots, then go ahead, ask him out, and you'll end up with a type B man who will love that, and you can run the show, and that was my marriage. I loved it. At 22, I loved being in control of that relationship. And by the time I was 35, I was exhausted.
Hence why you're no longer with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's adorable. He's like family to me, but it's like, oh, what was so amazing at 22? Not so amazing at 35. So it's not a rule to never ask a person out. It was my personal rule not to do it, because I know that as women, we're powerful. And I know I can cause things to happen like that. And I was married to my husband before he had even met me and heard my name. I mean, I was on it, right? So I made that relationship happen. And I didn't want to do that again. I actually wanted to feel chosen. I wanted to see if a man was going to pursue me and at what level he was going to pursue me. I wanted to see where he was leading me to. So I let him lead.
Awesome. Well, what's another rule that women follow that is just so ridiculous?
Oh, back from the rules, another rules that we have to undo. If he asks you out for Saturday when it's Thursday or Friday, you have to tell him no. How hot are you when you're unavailable? Seriously.
Especially on a first date.
Yeah. Yeah. So oftentimes, especially the young pumpkins, men in their 20s and 30s and even 40s, are so driven in building their career that they are so solely focused on what they're doing at work. It doesn't occur to them to pick their nose up off their desk and think about a girl and ask her out for the weekend. And it's not until Friday at lunch when they're like, oh, God, weekend, tomorrow, woo. I wonder who's available. The one I really want. Let me call the one I really want. Oh, she's washing her hair. Okay, well, we'll see who's next.
Yeah, and it's true. He will move on to next.
Yeah.
If you make him wait too long, like going out a week and a half to 2 weeks, he's probably going to move on. He's going to lose interest. And it sucks, but it's true. In this day and age of everything's moving so fast and I can have what I want sooner than later, making him wait for 2 weeks is not a good idea.
Well, and on that same note, this isn't a rule, but this is what busy women will do is if you can't get him on your calendar for 2-3 weeks, yeah, he's never going to date you. Never. Not just this one time, ever. Because women will tend to do something that men don't. We'll date him and we won't be getting what we need because he's really busy and we like each other, but it's crazy and his schedule's tight and we aren't getting enough attention and we're not our best selves. We're off balance, but we're willing to hang on because it could change for weeks and months. And how long should I keep holding on? He doesn't have time for me. Men don't do that. You can't get him on the calendar for 3 weeks. And he says, oh, to himself, that's a bummer because she's amazing. And she'll never be able to give me what I need in terms of time and attention. I'm out.
And I will tell you, ladies, Wendy is absolutely right because my male clients have told me exactly what she just said. So if you really want to get into a long-term relationship that leads to marriage, you need to make time for dating because if it's important, you will make the time. Well, these have been some great tips. So Wendy, tell our audience how they can find you and your awesome book.
Thank you. You can find me and my awesome book, 121 First Dates, at my website, wendyspeaks.com, and that's WENDYSPEAKS.com. Thanks.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us on the Single and Stiletto Show. Our show is available both in video format and podcast format. If you'd like to view the videos, you can go to singleandstilettos.com. If you'd like to get the podcast, you can download it from iTunes. If you'd like to get our free ebook on the 3 secrets guaranteed to attract any man based on scientific research, you can click right here on the video or you can go to singleandstilettos.com.